So the question is, what is my assessment after the first day, that was yesterday, and the field trips and the ongoing discussion about the Rawa River, and if something surprises me. So that was very insightful. The field trips, we made a field trip along the whole river, so starting from the very beginning, going to its end, and we focused several areas that were quite important to have a look on to develop further projects. Some of them were in the outskirts, and some of them were more in the urban setting, and some of them were also at its delta to the next river. So for me, it's very similar to what we have in our region, in the Emscher region. It's a river of several kilometers of length with different settings. Some of them are urban, some of them are non-urban. So you have different, let's say, opportunities how to combine river recovering together with landscape designing and left and right margin development. And also it's very important to stress that the urban areas, we have a bit less possibilities to intervene in a more generous way, let's say like this, into the urban landscape, whereas in the more outer areas you have more opportunities, but you can connect these areas. So what surprises me, I think that's not a big surprise, because I think the discussion is very similar to what we have experienced and what was our status quo 30 years ago, more or less. So the only thing I think that we have to find is a connecting point, some point of departure that everybody is jumping in and develop the project together. Well, the question, what is the potential of Rawa River and can it be compared to Emscher? I think it's clearly to say that we have a very similar point of departure when it comes to the Emscher, just like 30 years ago, and right now to the river Rawa here. So potentials are high. I especially see it with a very good eye that many of these areas, especially in the outskirts, are still not too much built on, so not too much occupied by urban settlements or urban built infrastructure. So in these areas, we should clarify who's the owner of these areas, but then it's far easy to develop projects left and right to these areas. This is something that I clearly see with the potential. In these urban areas here, I think it should be well connected to the already existing vibrant scene of public places, the university as some kind of actor that's also developing its ideas together with society, is perceived as an open place. So that's, for me, it's very unique. It's a unique selling point. We don't have this in our region, so that's something that should be developed also for the city branding, for the city image. Now this campus idea of being extended together with the blue and green campus, some parts of the river being revitalized and recovered. Emscher for sure is a big river. It's a different size, different dimension. But if you stick to the principles and the premises of river recovering that takes into account all the different actors, but find right methods and let's say strategies to address everybody, I think this is quite comparable, yes. So this, let's say from 30 years from now, we stand at a completely different picture. But we have projects already developed in the next 5 years. But the regional picture, I think, takes some time, just like in our case. So it's quite comparable. So about the question, which are my recommendations for those stakeholders with political power and influence to make this project happen? My clear claim would be you should connect this project to already existing urban development schemes of the cities and, let's say, expansion ideas of urban development, but also if it connects to the city's ideas of, let's say, rebranding the city, put even more upgrading existing blue and green infrastructure, and have the river as a potential for urban development. So my recommendation clearly is that we have to make it plausible that there's something to win within this idea, within this project. It's good for economic growth, it's good for urban development, it's also good for social integration. You create public spaces along the river, you make the river, and from it you transform it from a no river to a river. So I think this would be my main claim, that it really should be connected to the plans and that we should find some financial fundings for this program. I think there are a couple of options that come to my mind, but also in this case you have to put all the stakeholders on the round table and listen to all the voices, taking stock, overlapping different ideas and maps and assessments from both the universities and also the economic development, in order to see if it's fitting to the, let's say, 10, 20 years from here now planning for the city. Well, the question is about what are the main stages of development of the river Emscher and how did it start and how many years did it take, and also we were asked about the budget of this whole transformation process. So basically the Emscher conversion started 30 years ago when there was a big effort of the state government to transform the region from a, let's say, former industrial region to a modern city with new knowledge knowledge-led society, jobs, and the service sector being in the first place, whereas formerly it was more as an industrial region. So back then, the International Building Exposition gave the main impulse in the 90s, and during the last 30 years, from the 90s to the 2020s, we have been transforming the river and separated wastewater from river water. So that means right now, the first step consisted in building the infrastructure, large tubes under the soil that get all the wastewater that are the collectors for both the Emscher and also all the tributaries. Whereas right now the rivers are free of wastewater. That was the last 30 years. And the river recovering process is progressing parallelly, but first came the depollution. Right now we have more 10-15 years to get to the recovering process. That means wherever possible, we take out the concrete soil of the V-shaped channel profile or to replace it by natural design river. And the costs were estimated at 5.5 billion euros for the wastewater infrastructure. And each year we invest 300 million euros to recover rivers, build dikes, and redesign the margins. Like I said, this is for the next 10-15 years, more or less estimated, so you can expect that in the long run, totally it would be like 45 years, the whole modernization and transformation process. Question is, what is the economic impact of the transformation of the Emscher region, the Emscher River? Let's say an assessment of the economic trade-off. This was clearly measured. We had a university study that assessed the impact for economic development, both when it comes to employment creation, but also when it comes to business setting in our region. So that means tax revenues. This study set that was published 2 years ago by the University of Dortmund, and it says we had a threefold increase of the initial investment of 5.5 billion euros. So as a matter of fact, we have 13 billion euros of economic trade-off, like I said, both in employment creation and in bringing back the middle and upper classes to our region and the businesses. You have to understand that in former years, our region was mostly fled or avoided by investments. They would have gone elsewhere. So by this ecological improvement, we create especially an improvement on the soft factors of place-based development. So this is how it was measured, and that's the impact. And there are further impacts to be expected when it comes to the trade-off for city development. Again, when it comes to tax revenues.